Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Listen Up Girl podcast, the podcast where I break down what's happening in the LGBTQ plus community, what matters, what's changing, and what you need to know. I'm your host, Zach Randles-Friedman, and today's episode is a mix of celebration, concern, and some very real conversations about representation, rights, and resilience. Our first story is Lady Gaga's message to the trans community. We're starting off on a high note because sometimes visibility and allyship really do matter. Pop icon Lady Gaga just celebrated her 40th birthday, and fans are looking at a standout moment from the 2025 Grammys where she won Best Pop Duo Group Performance alongside Bruno Mars. What stuck out with people wasn't just the award, it was what she said on stage. She took a moment to directly uplift the trans community, saying, "Trans people are not invisible, trans people deserve love, the queer community deserves to be lifted up, and music is love. Thank you." And honestly, that matters. Because Gaga has been doing this for years, from shutting down harmful speculations about her own identity early in her career, consistently showing up for LGBTQ people at Pride events and beyond. She's used her platform intentionally. And right now, when trans people are being debated, legislated, and targeted across the country, moments like this aren't just nice, they're necessary. So thank you, Lady Gaga. In Ohio, we have a drag and trans rights bill coming up. Now, shifting into something more serious, the Ohio House of Representatives have passed Bill 249, also called the Indecent Exposure Modernization Act, and critics are raising alarms. The bill could effectively restrict or ban drag performances in certain contexts, impact how trans people access gendered spaces like locker rooms and restrooms. Supporters of the bill say it's about protecting children and reinforcing privacy. But opponents argue this is a broader pattern where legislation targeting trans people ends up affecting a much wider group. Because historically, when laws start policing gender expression, they don't stop neatly. They spill over, impacting cis women, queer people, and anyone who doesn't fit a narrow definition of identity. And that's why this story matters beyond Ohio. Next, LGBTQ plus athletes versus the Olympic policy. So let's talk about sports. Several prominent queer and trans athletes, including Nikki Hiltz, Harrison Brown, and Caster Semenya, are speaking out against new Olympic policies that restrict trans women and some intersex athletes from competing in women's events. This conversation has been building for years, and it sits at the intersection of fairness, identity, and inclusion. And here's the reality. For many LGBTQ plus athletes, sports have never been a playing field to begin with. So when policies are introduced that exclude already marginalized groups, it raises bigger questions. Who gets to compete? Who gets to belong? And who gets left out? Next, cost of living hitting LGBTQ people harder. So let's talk about money because this one hits close to home for a lot of people. A new study from the Kaiser Family Foundation found that LGBTQ plus adults are feeling the impact of rising costs more than non-LGBTQ plus adults. Here are the key stats. 83% say their cost of living has increased, 58% say it has increased a lot, and this isn't happening in a vacuum. LGBTQ people are more likely to face employment discrimination, experience healthcare disparities, have less financial nets, so when the costs go up, the impact isn't equal, it's amplified. Next, federal investigation into trans inmates. Now, a developing story already stirring controversy. The Justice Department has launched an investigation into transgender women housed in women's prisons in California and Maine. The issue has become a major political talking point, especially heading into upcoming elections. Supporters say it's about safety. Critics say it's about targeting a vulnerable population and fueling fear-based narratives. And like many issues involving trans rights, it's complicated, emotional, and highly politicized. Our next story is Bury Your Gays is Back. If you watch TV, you've probably heard of the phrase, bury your gays. It's the trope where queer characters are disproportionately killed off or written out of stories. It's trending again after a recent storyline on General Hospital, where a queer character, Marco, was killed off in a dramatic plot. Now, on paper, it's just storytelling, But the reaction online tells a deeper story because where representation is still limited, losing those characters feels bigger. It's not about one character, it's about what they represent and whether queer stories are allowed to have longevity or just tragedy. We go into today's story where protest and community response. Across the country, over 3,000 No Kings protests were planned, with thousands showing up in cities like New York City and Boston to push back political leadership and policies. The moment reflects something bigger. People are organizing, they're showing up, and they are making their voices heard. I watched some TV reports on this today, and I cannot believe how many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have shown up across all these cities to protest the orange convicted felon. Bet they are, and I love it. Next, teen testimony on ICE incident. In a powerful and emotional moment during a congressional hearing, a 16-year-old testified that ICE agents choked him and mocked him during his father's arrest. He said they called him gay for crying, and that moment, it says a lot. Because even in situations that aren't explicitly about LGBTQ plus issues, queer identity is used as a weapon, as an insult, and as a way to dehumanize. And that's something we cannot ignore. And finally, we have a global and U.S. LGBTQ trends. So let's end with a broader look at where things are standing globally. A 2025 survey found that the Philippines has the highest percentage of LGBTQ plus identifying people at 11% of the population. However, in the U.S., support for same-sex marriage is at 65%, down from 69% in 2022. So while visibility is growing worldwide, support isn't always moving in the right direction. I'm very disappointed. It's only 4%, but it's very disappointing that the U.S. is not supporting same-sex marriage as it used to. So what does this all tell us? We're in a moment of contrast. There's visibility like Gaga's message. There's resistance like the protests. There's also pushback, policy changes, and real challenges facing the community. And that's why conversations like this matter, because staying informed is power. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the Listen Up Girl podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. I'll be back tomorrow with more LGBTQ plus news.